Alright, so I'm going to show you guys how to tweak some very strong sideways linemen. And by sideways linemen, I mean these guys are not set up the way the base normally faces, whether it's this way or this way. So we've got these figures. These are actually Larry Walker custom figures, and they're on a base that's going to move. Basically, instead of moving this way, it just blocks people from coming this way. 7 guys on 5. We're going to see how they hold the base, or how the bases hold the line. That's not bad. That's 7 Invisibases are holding back. And I have a few of these guys on defense. I mean, this is not an offensive line. I just want to show you. I've got these are, I guess, 3 gear bases and 1 other kind of base with an ITZ dial in it, and they're going to try to hold off 6 Invisibases. So these guys are used as cover corners, sometimes on the inside line. For example, if I just want to stop somebody's run, I could put 1 or 2 of these guys out there. It really, it takes up 2 blockers and really hurts them. And just to show you how this guy's a gear-based monster. He just takes down Invisibases. He just moves them back. So 2 kinds of bases can be used for making sideways bases. So one is a standard Tudor base. I'm not even using a Pro line, I'm just using a convention base. They're cheaper. The other one's called a gear base. This is an ITZ base. This is what you get with an ITZ base. You get 4 prongs. These are prongs that actually, like the base prongs. These are the 2 little geary things that you turn, to move them. And this is the cover. So after you've got all the prongs in here, you snap this over there and it looks nice and sweet, right? First thing you do is you find somebody to throw these at, because you won't need them. So let's get rid of those. The other thing is, for the ITZ base, you're going to want to remove the standard Tudor dial, which only has 2 prongs, and get the ITZ dials. So these are the ITZ dials. They have a bunch that have 8 prongs, some of them that have 4 prongs. As you see, I've been using up the 8-prong one, so I'm going to take off 1 of these. That's what's going to go into there. You might be asking yourself, how are these knobs going to, or how these prongs going to stay in there? And that's where I'm going to use putty. Now the problem is the ITZ dial is actually bigger than the other dial was, so it takes a little bit of finagling to get this in there. And there you go. So now what you could do is lop off a little bit of this, because maybe I don't want to have this sticking out. Maybe I want to have a reasonably smooth surface, because I want to have somebody stick to the base. If I put it like this, he may end up bouncing off of the rounded part. So now here are the prongs, and just like anything else, you would just take your, I'm going to take, these are the wubbers, these are the wide wubbers. And the reason I take them, you see how they're bigger than 2 prongs, so I'm just going to take it and crush, just like you would normally tweak any base. I'm going to crush all of them, and I like to give it a couple of squeezes, and letting go after each one, just to, I could see the progress and make sure that these guys are getting a little bit thicker. That's the whole idea. Now, in fact, these are different tweaks, because what we're going to try to make on these is bases that typically don't move that much, especially with the Tudor bases. These are really good for being bricks. Whereas you took 2 medium bases, they can't move 1 of these guys. And it should be able to hold off an Invisibase or an Invisibase and a half. And now in this one, I don't even need to hit it with the lighter, because what the lighter does is it takes the flashing off of the very tips of the prongs, that part that touches the field. But what we're going to do is we're going to take these guys and curl them up. These are the Xuron 450s. They're only like 1 millimeter and change thick. And what I'm going to do is just get the end and roll. And I'm squeezing and rolling at the same time. Right? Squeeze and roll. And what I want to do is I want to put a big curl on these things. I want these things to look like a question mark. And I'm going to keep squeezing and rolling. all I've done is gone back and forth with each of these and done that. Squeeze it and roll it. Squeeze it and roll it. Right, nothing much going on here. I also put a figure on here. This is the late Jim Vallone from the Vikings from the 60s. I don't expect him to move very far or very fast. That's fine. Don't even bother trying to get these guys to go straight, because really they're just blockers. So I'm going to take an Invisibase and we'll see how he does. There's a couple things. These guys really respond well with weight. And the trick is to move the weight around in different places, because it will react differently to that. The other thing is this twist and curl thing. You need to keep doing this. And I'm going to have to come back tomorrow and maybe even the next day and just to see how these prongs are taking the twisting. Let's see what we need as far as weight on this guy. He's 360, so that's quite a bit of putty. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually going a little bit farther down the prong, because before I was just wrapping at the end, squeezing and roll. Now I'm going to go down just a pinch farther and squeeze that and roll it some more. So it's got a bigger hook at the end. So actually the base is going to be lower now. One other thing, since we've lowered the prongs, actually these back prongs might come into play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this with my thin surrounds, take it and twist it. So instead of having it face, instead of propelling the figure this way, I'm going to twist it and propel it forwards, which is, my new forwards. And I'm going to take the slightly bigger pliers for that. Twisting it. It's probably going to be hard to see, but you see I've actually got a prong there. It's a little bit more of a twist. Just out of curiosity if he's as well. That's interesting. And let's see. It's pretty good. You can keep tweaking the base, you can keep trying other things. It actually moves a lot more than I expect. Usually these bases just kind of, when you turn the field on, they barely move. What I'm going to do first is tweak these prongs. So I do give a little bit of a squeeze with the left hand too, just to give a little bit of play there. So I'm just going to pop these into the four corners here. And the reason I didn't curl it yet is because I want to see if this base actually moves. So the prongs, these two prongs are now curling back a little bit this way. This will be the front of the base. Make sure they're all going around about the same way. That's the way you're going to get the base to move in a certain direction. Okay, now instead of putting in those little knobs and all that, I'm going to get my putty. I'm going to take two little balls, and I've gotten really good at figuring out how big the ball should be. Just like that. I drop it right into that little hole, and the pinky squishes it in place, and it kind of goes a little bit onto those gear parts, and it holds it down just a little bit, just enough. So you want to take a ball that's a little bit smaller than that hole, maybe about the same size, and just squish it in. So you want to squish it so it goes over the prongs here and here, here and there. So just going to hit it with a lighter. There you go. And hit it with a lighter on this side. Again, once you put the weight on this, you could use that to help balance it out, and it's actually moving pretty well. So if he falls forward, which a lot of times I do, what I'd like to do is just try, before I even put a weight on, just move him back a little bit. This is pretty cool for like a kickoff return. You get this guy and he takes up, he's almost taken, not quite double, but he's taken up quite a bit more surface area. If you have a set of 11 of these guys that run pretty straight, that's not too shabby. Let's see what he does. He moves pretty fast. I'm not sure how strong he'll be though. Which is not bad. It's a standard Invisibase. So not bad. What I also want to do is I want to check the weight on him. Okay, 387. He's nearly 4, so Sometimes you can cheat and put a little bit less there, and then you have a little bit of extra weight you could play with the front or the back. If I want to make this guy into the boat anchor, offensive lineman, where he's just going to hold it, it's the same exact process as what I did with the other. I squeeze and I roll, squeeze and roll. I'm not sure I want to do that with this one yet. It moves pretty well. And again, that's the first figure I've tried on this. What you want to do is you want to try, this is just a custom painted big man set that I had, and I was just playing with, I lopped them off there, just took a little razor blade and lopped them off their platform and, put it on a little bit sideways. So I experimented also with, putting them on a little bit of an angle. Like this guy's a little bit off to the side. Actually, that was pretty promising. What I find actually works really well is this figure on a slight angle like that. So this will actually be an interesting looper. I mean, he's reasonably fast, and if I put a little bit of, if I readjust the weight, I could steal a little bit from here and put it in the back. If he's tipping forward, I may want to put the weight in the back. This is a very forward-leaning base. I'm curious how he would do against the Invisibase, because he's very much leaning forward. He's not going to give a lot of ground. That's pretty interesting. So anyway, I would take a handful of these guys and put them sideways. And this is what I mean by testing the bases. I mean, this one seemed to work better as a blocker. This one seemed better as a for somebody who's going to try to get around. The other guys maybe not so good.